Five, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Alright, hello, willkommen, bienvenue, konnichiwa. It's time for the Armist Inquisition yet again. Episode 169.
Execute order 69, dude!
On Sunday the 31st of January, I'm Amish Phil.
I'm Amish Ben.
And I'm Amish Matt.
The dwarf, the cripple, and the mother of madness.
And tonight we've got Anthony Hoyes from the metal band Vorzug coming at us from... Yeah, how are you doing, mate? How's it going?
Not too bad. How are you guys?
Not bad.
Good, thanks.
Not bad for a Sunday.
Yeah.
You're just on your way home, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm out with the family doing stuff. They're ready to, actually, they're taking a vacation across the country. I'm staying home, but
Oh, you got
just going out and eating and stuff and visiting a bit before they leave.
Right. Whereabouts in the States are you?
I am in Phoenix, Arizona.
Right.
Hot.
Yeah, pretty warm. I mean, right now, this is our cold time of year, but, it's cold at, 60 degrees.
Nice.
Cracky. Yeah, we could do with that. We've got a bit of snow knocking about here. So. Yeah. We hooked up on YouTube. You sent us it's an email, I think. Was it the David Weiss?
Yeah, David Weiss. I'm a fan of David's. I've got his app. I'm a flat Earth enthusiast. David's one of the guys that I watch all of his content, and he's definitely a good guy for flat Earth movement. He's a very handy app he's built.
How long have you been following him and flat Earth in general?
In general, about 2 years for flat Earth. I'm a musician, and before that I worked as I ran a legal department for a Fortune 500 financial company. So, I was pretty busy and didn't really take time to think about any of the stuff that I was ever taught or learned about until, I stopped doing that job and I retired. So I'm just doing music now pretty much full time, and I've got this, I've had nothing but time on my hands, so I really looked into it. I was going to go back to school and was going to get a degree in physics and all that nonsense, and didn't do that because, it pretty much came down to there is no physics and the Earth is flat, so it's all lies anyway.
Yeah, gravity's sort of out the window, isn't it? On the flat Earth model?
It's funny. I comment with my buddies all the time. This is one of the... I feel silly having believed, the heliocentric stuff for so long, never looking at it. And then as soon as you look at it, it doesn't hold up at all. But yeah, gravity is, I was always into the electric universe theory and into Tesla stuff. But, once I started really getting into Tesla, he figured out what gravity was back in, I think it was 1891. And then he shelved it until right before he died. He started talking about it again. He died right before he was supposed to come out with this big announcement on what gravity actually was. And yeah, I think that was, probably when they probably killed him. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, the electric universe is an interesting one. It's an Australian chap who's one of the pioneers behind it. I can't remember his name because I know he's on our hit list to hopefully get on one day. But doesn't the electric universe model, isn't that still heliocentric?
Not so much. You can probably use it for that. I'm more of the electric universe in terms of what gravity is, electricity, buoyancy, density. I learned about electricity essentially being, one of the only forces, and they tell you gravity is a force, but it's not. When you ask them what it is, they can't tell you. But, electricity and magnetism, those are forces, what they are. You can, test them, you can repeat them. And then, when you find out, density and buoyancy, I used to hear that all the time and thought it was nonsense till I actually found out what it was. And it makes perfect sense now. That's why helium floats and, so on and so forth. Balloons will float up when you let it go. With helium and air, it doesn't. You do half air, half helium, the balloon will stand still in the air. That tells you it's right there. It's density and buoyancy.
What's the standard explanation?
Standard explanation of the gravity?
Like the helium balloon, I mean.
Oh, they don't say that. I mean, I've never had anybody give me a real explanation other than the gravity is keeping it from floating up. I mean, gravity, then, that's always the catch-all word, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a weird one, gravity, because it seems to me, and I'm an idiot, complete idiot, but as far as I know, gravity is one of those things where the standard model, anyway, what I'm talking about, is that it's one of those things where you sort of witness the effects of it rather than it being something that you can measure like you could with electricity, the way you can measure voltage, you can measure amperage, and you can measure frequency. But it is a weird one, isn't it, gravity?
It's just one of those things, like you hear it, and the kids here getting in the car, they all believe in gravity too. They don't know any better yet, and I try to tell them, and they only know what they've been told in school. So
yeah,
fortunately one of those things, but yeah, it's one of those things you don't know what it is, and then I think Dave used it with you guys with the. He said the dark dollars business about, I'm going to give you 96 dark dollars, but you know what a dollar is, so you know it's there.
Right. So yeah, dark matter.
That's a perfect analogy, I think.
Yeah, I've wondered whether dark matter and dark energy are just sort of being used to explain something that they don't really understand, and it's just sort of a convenient thing they use because they don't really know what they're talking about.
Well, when I remember, when I was going to school, I have 3 degrees from college. I mean, they're not in science. I'll, go ahead and say that. But, I was always a business person. So I was, I did business stuff. But, you still have to listen. And, I listened to it and it didn't make any sense when they told me then. But, even dark matter, that wasn't a thing, when I was in high school. They didn't talk about that back then. That's a relatively new thing, and then that's sort of the funny thing is every day you see this new article on science, you see a new space thing, and it's constantly a contradiction to what they've previously said years gone by, or now they're saying that the moon has Earth atmosphere, and that there's technically oxygen up there in the moon.
Really?
And it's nonsense. They say these things all the time, and they change it constantly to where you don't know what to believe. You say one thing, it's outdated, in a week. So you never know. But yeah, the last thing I saw, they were saying that there's dinosaur bones on the moon, and that that's funny. They say that you can find fossils on the moon of dinosaurs, and that. Basically, there's atmosphere up there, and that there's oxygen, very trace amounts, and that there's water on the moon underneath the dust.
Who's saying this? Scientists?
I fucking love science. Science.com. There's all these websites that have this nonsense. Every day.
Really?
I have an iPhone, so every day I have Apple News that I check, and it's always some story.
God.
Wow.
And I just laughed about it with my buddies. We all take turns saying, "Oh yeah, this is great," because it's basically proving our points for us. We say this is, what the universe is. Then next thing you know, they're saying, "Oh well, maybe there's, bubbles in space." And for a longest time they said that wasn't happening, but now there's bubbles in space, and that causes cativation and sonoluminescence and. That could be what stars are. Who knows? I don't know what any of this stuff is. I think it's all water up there.
Just to go back,
with dinosaurs on the moon, that's Peter Brannan, isn't it? And he's conjecture that the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, according to the generic story, actually forced the debris from that, lots of stuff from Earth onto the moon, including potentially dinosaur bones and bits of dead dinosaur that have ended up on the moon. But you'd think that they'd be quite well preserved on the moon and not necessarily would go through the same sort of microbial effect that they'd have here. And you might actually have bones. You'd have actual bits of dinosaur flesh covered in dust.
Well, you would think. I mean, if there's no oxygen to eat away at it or something, it would be perfectly preserved.
That seems pretty implausible to me, that when the meteor struck 65 million years ago, that debris that survived was ejected up, escaped Earth's gravity and Earth's atmosphere, and then was sucked up by the moon and got ditched on the moon. That sounds...
on like a 1 week journey.
Yeah. What's he called, Ben? Peter Bogdanovich?
Peter Brennan.
Brennan.
Yeah, we'll put him on the hit list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
No, I've heard of water ice being on the moon, because that's the whole idea about making a moon base, isn't it? Because you can get oxygen and hydrogen from water, obviously. And hydrogen's fuel, isn't it, potentially? And oxygen to breathe. That's the idea, isn't it? But I don't know how or why water ice is on the moon.
Well, the standard explanation would probably be something like panspermia, wouldn't it? That
Maybe.
These dusty, what do they call them? Like muddy, dirt balls. These dirty snowballs, comets, have deposited water on the moon. I don't know.
I've always heard asteroids and comets are the reason why there's water up there.
Yeah.
I'm also one of those people. I don't believe the moon is a physical object either. So I don't think you can actually land on it, or asteroids or anything can strike it. I mean, but what do I know? I'm a death metal singer.
The thing I was going to ask you, Anthony, when I think of like the sort of conspiracy pyramid, like flat Earth is usually up there somewhere at the top.
Pinnacle.
Yeah. Did you have like a route? Did you have a red pill moment, and then you started looking at, I don't know, 9/11, and then work your way up to flat Earth, or did you just see one of David's videos and think, wow, and you started at the top and you're working down, or what?
No, I was always into conspiracies, but like I said, I was in the financial system a lot. So the stuff that I mostly dealt with was the Federal Reserve and stock market, and I'm real against all that stuff, and it's right now it's really playing out with market manipulation. You can see that they're not even trying to hide it anymore.
This is the Reddit and GameStop thing that's been happening over the last week or so, hasn't it? There's been a lot of
and I don't trust that for a second. They're also just real quick, they're saying that the silver market's going to be the next thing that people are going after. All the Bitcoin people are talking about. You buy digital silver and then you turn it into the bank or the brokerage house and you demand payment back in physical silver, and they don't have that to give you. So at that point, that's going to drive the price up because it makes it look like it's a scarcity, when in reality it may not be, but because they don't have it, they can't pay you out. The price is going to jump up, and that's how they're talking about manipulating the silver market. That's also going to go up on gold. So if you have silver and gold in the next few months, could be a good idea, but don't stay in it too long, I'd say.
This is this part of the fractional reserve system? This silver manipulation?
It's fractional reserve system, but at the same time, that's just pure market manipulation. But I don't know if you're familiar with how the stock market works. At least here in the United States, everything goes through a clearinghouse. You have to give up, I believe it's something like 9/10 possession of your company in order to be listed on the clearinghouse. So the stock that's on there, it's basically like the 10% of stock that's left, and it's not Class A stock, it's not a stock, it's nonsense. But that's what we make our economy based off of. The rest of the money goes to it's CEDE and Company is the name of the company that owned it all. They're one of the clearing houses. They're the DTCC. That all goes back to, it's conspiracy theory, they say, but it goes back to the Pacer Family Trust, which basically French royalty came to the United States and they basically ruled the world pretty much. I was always into Federal Reserve stuff and conspiracy stuff. 9/11, the Challenger thing was a big one for me because that was when I was JFK movie, Oliver Stone did. 9/11, I was actually a George Bush fan, but once I figured out he had roles in 9/11, I wasn't too keen on him.
What do you think his role was? Because the sort of the way George Bush was portrayed in this country, at least, is that he was essentially incompetent.
He's a puppet, yeah.
And a puppet.
He was portrayed the same way.
Yeah.
I think Dick Cheney was charged.
Yeah.
I don't think that Bush Jr. was the captain of that ship. I think it was Cheney. And I think he surrounded himself with people that would do what he wanted him to do. And that movie Vice, also an Oliver Stone film. I think it did a pretty good portrayal of the deal that they struck with George Bush to get Dick Cheney in there as VP.
Yeah, and Rumsfeld was one of the big figures around that time as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney, they got Dick Cheney started, Rumsfeld did, in politics. And they just surround themselves with old friends and yes men, and they went for that unitary government thing, and that's sort of what they were trying to hope for, and it's pretty much been in place since then.
What's that? Sorry, the unitary government.
It was a unitary executive, basically. So essentially, the president didn't have to go to Congress to declare war. They can, do the fights. They don't have to get permission to go in there and rebuild. They didn't have to do. Essentially, it means anything that the U.S. government does on the president's orders is completely legal because the president cannot break the law. So that's their way around war crimes.
Right, so like a mechanism to get around the separation of powers between the executive, the legislature.
They controlled at the time the presidency, the House, and the Senate. I think the only thing they didn't have was the judiciary, but you're not supposed to control that here in this country anyway, even though it is.
No. I mean, anyone looking at sort of Dick Cheney's ties with Halliburton, for example, is going to look at that and how the contracts were handed out in the aftermath, at least, of 9/11. And I never understood why they invaded Iraq after 9/11.
Well, that was the whole, Wesley Clark, General Wesley Clark said that he was in the Pentagon and they told him, right after 9/11, we're going to invade Iraq. And they told him, straight up, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go on these 7 countries. It was in the Project for a New American Century document that Cheney and Rumsfeld wrote with the Trilateral Commission, the CFR. They admitted all that stuff in writing, saying we're going to do this. This is, these are the countries we're going to go after. We want their oil. We want their governments. And they're basically overthrown all of them. I think Syria and Iran are the only ones left, and North Korea. But I don't even know. For all I know, North Korea is not real.
I was just going to say, David.
I know people who have been there. I'm not saying it's not real, but I don't know what's really going on over there. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've seen that clip of Wesley Clark. It was a famous interview that's been clipped and shared around social media where he says, Oh, it's worse than that. I've just got a list from upstairs, and he rattles off the half a dozen countries who are next on the list. And I mean, it's nothing new. I don't know. One of my favourite books one of the books that sort of red pilled me was Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's sort of the same story basically, but all sort of centralized around Central and South America and sort of US meddling with regime change and influencing foreign countries through different methods.
I was into the zeitgeist stuff when all that stuff was first coming out, and they did one of those movies had the guy who wrote that book on there. He was talking about being an economic hitman. That essentially described what George Soros is, only he does it, not in Latin American countries. And then people still act like he's, a good guy, and he's not doing those things.
He did it in this country.
Completely, yeah. He did it. I know he did it in the UK. He's famous for doing it there. He definitely did it here. He owns the DAs here. He owns all the, the low-level politician, local people. There's crime going around all over the place here. I don't know how it is, where you're at, but right now they're talking about, actually arresting people and putting them in prison for not wearing masks now. And, criminals are being released from prison because coronavirus is so bad in the prison, so they say. It doesn't make any kind of sense.
Yeah.
It's getting a bit like that, isn't it, over here? It's sort of, it's more for like gatherings and stuff, isn't it? £10,000 fines for everybody at a gathering, I think, has been discussed or something ridiculous.
Currently, if you organise a gathering or a protest or a party or a wedding, the organisers get fined 10 grand, and the participants, I think it's £200 for a first offence, and then it doubles, I think, roughly each time if you continue to disobey the rules. But yeah, they are talking about bringing in stricter things. I mean, we did like a big round table swapcast last week, and Jamie Ike was on there, David Icke's son, and he brought up a really good point for me about individual responsibility, and people need to decide where their line is in the sand that they won't cross regarding all this stuff. And I can sympathise, really, because us here in the West, particularly the UK and the US, we've had quite a sheltered life the last few decades. It's not like we have a living memory of living in under a communist regime or a fascist regime, and we've sort of gotten lazy and taken our rights for granted, and so it's caught a lot of people on the hop, the way our rights have just been stripped away from us, over the last year. And I thought he raised a good point in that you've got to you need to wake up to what's happening and decide where your line's going to be. He said to you, Ben, didn't he? If they come out tomorrow and say, it turns out the virus, it only circulates above 2 feet off the ground, are you going to crawl around on your belly?
Where do you draw the line?
Where's your line? And people need to decide, I think.
I completely agree with you. Thankfully, in Arizona, we have a pretty open state. It's one of the few states that isn't completely caught up in all the nonsense, but to a point it is. I mean, they don't scream at you for not wearing a mask so much here, but they believe it here. Especially the news is on nonstop saying that this is the worst state for deaths, and that the UK version of coronavirus is here in the state. All these people are dying now, and it's still nonsense. You can go on the CDC website and see the actual for each county and see, how many beds are full, and it's nowhere near what the news is reporting. So it's all lies. I learned early on from, I have a team of doctors. I have kidney failure. So I have end-stage kidney failure. So I'm one of those sick people who should be dead right now. But I go out maskless. I don't social distance. I don't do any of these things, and I'm not sick at all. And I'm around sick people constantly. We go on vacation. We went to Vegas, during all of this stuff. All this stuff was going on, and nothing happened to me. And nothing has happened to me. Two of the kids had coronavirus early on, and it was essentially they had a cold. They had the flu. That was it. They were fine. It's nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. And then you see all this great reset nonsense. You see, they've been talking about it for decades now. I've been an Alex Jones listener for years, and he's been talking about it. He cites white papers, he cites books that these people write, and you go and you read it, and you see it right there. We're going to do this. 20 years later, they're doing it. And it's not them, it's their kids doing it most of the time, but, they're still doing it.
Yeah, it was the World Economic Forum this week.
You have to draw a line in the sand. You say, this is what I'm not going to do, and you have to just live with it. And I liked early on what they were saying about the coronavirus. This is like back in May or something. They said, well, we just have to sort of get used to it. It's not going away. We have to make this a part of our lives now. And I thought, okay, well, maybe they're going to stop this, but they didn't. They just kept it up. So I mean, it's not going to go away, but it's not I don't think it's a serious thing right now. It's the flu, pretty much. That's what all the numbers say.
There's too many.
That's another thing I saw. Just the other day, yesterday, I think I saw Joe Biden's press secretary was out talking, and either right before or right after the meeting, they had some people talking, and his staff said, "No, you don't need the mask on. It's essentially the flu. Has a 0.03% death rate in the world, so it's the flu." And this is the people who have been pushing the nonsense, the most. So I don't know. I don't trust any of it. I'm not sick. I've been fine the whole time. And like I said, I don't take any precautions, so I can't trust that any of it's real.
Do you think how much of the motivation behind the scaremongering do you think is to do with getting rid of the Orange Man?
I think the majority of it was at first. I actually didn't think that it was going to go quite the way it did. I always knew they were going to try to steal it, but I thought in the end, it was going to be okay. But I think the majority of it was getting rid of the Orange Man, and then also taking over the big thing right away. Within the first month or so of the virus outbreak, again, I was in the stock market, so I was paying attention to all the economic stuff, and it was constantly going on about the Federal Reserve's coming in. They're going to start doing all these junk buybacks. They're going to start taking over these companies, and sure enough, that's what they did. And it was, pretty much just a power and money grab, I think. That's the majority of what was happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of different interest groups who are trying to milk this situation we're in as much as they can to forward their own agendas, whether that be, the World Economic Forum or different governments or NGOs or whatever. Yeah, I don't think this is going to end anytime soon, personally. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
I was quite hopeful for the magic vaccine. That would kind of put an end to it, really. I thought the election in America might make it die down because of the amount it was politicised, sort of like mask wearing and how serious the virus was and all the rest of it. I thought once that had all got out of the way, and then coming into spring, the vaccine would match sort of like the seasonality effect and all the rest of it, and then it would go away, and then sort of they might just sort of prep us in the summer to say, right, this is something that's around forever, get used to it, basically, and we'd all move on. But I don't know. Sort of like the last few months, it's got to the stage where I'm thinking, are they I'm kind of thinking now that if it spikes again in the autumn, then we're stuck again doing the same things. I don't know.
Yeah, they've set the stall out, particularly in this country, that there's only we only have one cure for this situation, and that's lockdowns. And so they don't really have I can't see an exit strategy for the politicians. And, you know, we know the politicians aren't really interested in what's best for us. They're just interested in getting elected next time. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
The problem is as well, at the moment here anyway, sort of like the polls, is people want more lockdowns, don't they? Harder lockdowns. And that's, like you said, that's the only cure, isn't it, basically?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to do here is, you know, Biden said he's going to do the 100-day lockdown thing or mask mandate. And, you know, thankfully federal judges stopped that from happening. But, I mean, that's really what they've been pushing for. They want you staying home. They want you basically locked away. And, you know, it doesn't make any sense.
That's been stopped.
Don't have an immune system if you keep yourself locked away.
Yeah, that's the other thing, isn't it?
So the 100 days of masks, that's been stopped, has it, Anthony?
As of right now, it has currently been stopped by a federal judge.
Really?
So there could be, nope.
Hey, the puppet.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of dogs and cats. So.
Okay.
Hello.
I thought it was quite ironic in a way that, you know, Trump has been labelled as this sort of fascist dictator for the last 4 years. Yeah. And then within a week, Biden signed, 1,000 executive orders.
Yeah. What's done a lot, hasn't he? It's like just like sort of one swipe of the pen. I think I was reading something today. He's like doing the whole. Is it Agenda 21? Is that the environmental thing? And sort of stop that pipeline. That was a big thing, wasn't it? Is he trying to electrify the entire fleet of federal vehicles or something like that? Shutting down sort of gas and oil. He's not shutting down. I think the article said he wasn't shutting down fracking, but I'm just thinking that's like a massive economic change, sort of well-paid jobs that are going to be sort of lost there. And where did he go? Those people.
Learn to code. That's what they say. Learn to code. This guy, you know, he's worked on a gas pipeline for 30 years.
Yeah.
It's a joke. This is all the Green New Deal stuff, Anthony. What do you make of the Green New Deal and the Green Agenda?
Well, I used to think it was funny until we had to live through it now. I seriously never, you know, it's funny to think about now, but, you know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and in the early 80s, you know, you used to hear about communism all the time, and it was a big deal. It was in a bunch of movies, and, you know, all the time I'd hear about communism. And my drummer, his name's Daniel. When I first met him, we were on a tour, and we were playing in Long Beach, California, on the Queen Mary. And right behind the Queen Mary, it's a cruise ship, and they had a Russian submarine that's parked there. You can go; it's like a tourist attraction. And he got so angry talking to me about this Russian sub, and he talked to me. He's 10 years older than I am, so he really went into depth about communism. And it was a long story. It was nonsense, most of it, but it was hilarious. And looking back at it now, that's exactly what we're still dealing with. It's still Nazis, it's still communists, and it doesn't seem like it's really going away. They're just, you know, rebranding themselves as something else right now. But yeah, this Green New Deal nonsense is. I didn't think it was going to be implemented as quickly as it has been. We'll put it that way. But you know, I think day one he got rid of 120,000 Texas oil jobs. The insider trading thing you mentioned about you know, electrifying the fleet. Nancy Pelosi bought a whole bunch of stock in Tesla right before that was announced. So yeah, she literally made millions of dollars off of that deal, and that was maybe 2 weeks worth of time that passed. But yeah, it's nonsense. I don't see how they're gonna do the Green New Deal. Basically, they have to tear down every building and rebuild it to get their their emissions the right way, and they're gonna cut down on meat production, which I think they've been doing that for a while. But yeah, I don't know. It's sort of a terrifying thing when you think about it, that communism is still going strong in the world, and we literally have been fighting this since the 40s and 50s, and it's still going, and who knows before that what was happening with it. Yeah,
the big thing they keep talking about at Davos this week is net zero by 2050, and they're all getting on board now. I've got some clips for later, but bankers, Dr. Belinda Gates, he's well into it. All these fuckers, and it's rules for thee and not for rules for me and not for thee, and they'll all be fine. You see, they're rich. Yeah, they can afford to pay the carbon offsets taxes.
Well, okay, really though, who's going to make them pay anything? They're the ones in charge. They're not going to be paying anything. I mean, it's their money to begin with, and then it's their rules. So yeah, they're not paying anything. And a lot of these people, they had all these articles for the longest time about how they have these armored, fortresses basically in other countries, and they don't have to pay any taxes, they don't have to follow any of the rules, and I don't know. It's one of those things where it sounds ludicrous to say it, but it's the truth. We're ruled by a bunch of Satanists and communists, and most of them are probably pedophiles.
What's your opinion of the QAnon stuff? Because we've never really gotten into QAnon, and it's not really prevalent. It's quite sort of US focused, isn't it? The QAnon conspiracy stuff. So, where are you on Q?
I was never into Q very much. Most of the stuff they would talk about was stuff that
I've just realized we're probably going to get censored now.
Yeah, we probably shouldn't say that letter.
Yeah, call it
17th letter of the alphabet. How about that?
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
But yeah, I mean, it was never anything like news. Everything that I had heard about from there, I had heard from Alex Jones or David Icke or somebody years prior. I knew about Jeffrey Epstein back in 2007. You know about all the Clintons and all that stuff. Sean Atwood talks about them. There's been books written about them. It's not news. And then a lot of the stuff that they focused on was, all this, trust the plan. They don't give specifics. You don't ever know who's doing it. It's all on a message board. That's not the way that military intelligence is going to communicate with people. So I never really believed in it. It was entertaining. I'll give it that much. I mean, I liked the JFK Jr. stuff for a while. That was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, I was never into Q. I think it was all a Psy-Op. I think it's a Operation Trust 2.0 pretty much.
Who would be behind it then, in your opinion? If you had to guess.
Well, if you read the rules for radicals, and it's straight out of the communist playbook. It was Operation Trust was in 1920s during the Bolshevik Revolution. They set up basically fake resistance, and they would get people to commit crimes in behalf of the name of the resistance, which would make the power structure come down harder on the resistance, which is basically what they're doing now. That was the whole Capitol riot thing. 200 people went in there and stood within the velvet ropes. A few people stole some things and, yelled at the cops. That was completely Antifa. There's no way about it. They got some of the Q people worked up, I'm sure, because they were saying that they were posting on message boards saying, this is for the president. We're on secret missions for him, and nonsense like that. So they went in there trying to actually do something, I guess, But yeah, that's exactly what Operation Trust used to do. It's right out of the communist playbook.
Yeah, it's like basically an agent provocateur, but on a grand scale.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's...
And, when I didn't like it at first when I saw it. Like, everyone was, all the patriots were cheering it on at first, on the internet, saying, the Capitol is being overrun right now by patriots. I watched it, and I'm like, no, this is Antifa. They had riot shields in place. They were, breaking windows out with riot shields. That's straight Antifa moves.
And I've forgotten her name now, but the woman who allegedly was shot, where that door is. I mean, there's some sort of alternative theories around that as well, isn't there?
I've seen a few about her. I don't know anything about her, so I'm not going to comment really. But I think that she. They definitely got her though. She was a patsy, just like the George Floyd thing was a setup. It's all meant to foment the basically the coming lockdowns and the crackdown on Republicans or conservatives, saying that we're all right-wing terrorists, and you see AOC crying about how she was held hostage, and they're all saying this nonsense. They sat in the chamber, nothing happened to them. They sat there, they were escorted out. So I mean, it's just something that they're trying to do to crack down on conservatives and their opposition, which is what they claimed Trump was doing the whole time.
Yeah, so similar to you would use this as a sort of an excuse to bring forward legislation similar to like the Patriot Act and a way of removing rights.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an updated Patriot Act. I mean, they're already talking about, and I'm thankful that nothing happened with it, but they're talking about coming after the guns, and all these right wing people were armed at the Capitol and this and that, and I think it was about 3 days before the inauguration, all the state capitals were fenced up around, the big cities as well. We have the Arizona State Capitol here in Phoenix, and they had fenced that off. You couldn't go anywhere near the Capitol. And they had things on Craigslist calling for people to show up armed, and, we're going to protest the Capitol. And all that is asking for trouble.
So the state capitol, are they federal buildings then?
Well, yeah, they're technically federal buildings, even though they're property of the state.
Right. Yeah, like a federal embassy in each state, sort of thing.
Pretty much, yeah. And now normally you can show up there, and you can protest there. You can show up to the Capitol, just go in anytime you want. It's a big tourist thing here in Phoenix, but yeah, they had it locked down. You couldn't get anywhere close to it.
So is Phoenix a red state or a blue state?
They've been calling it a purple state recently. It is diehard red, and this election they did nothing but elect Democrats. So they said, I don't believe that for a second, but that's what it is. That's what we have to live with. So right now it's a blue state. Right.
I found it pretty shocking, some of the language, particularly that the media's been using about the Capitol building stuff. You're hearing language like domestic terrorists, sedition, insurrection, these like pretty serious terms being thrown around by MSNBC, CBS, NBC, all the rest of them. And it's sort of it's not going to calm the situation, is it? I mean, do you think that tensions have calmed since the inauguration?
No, I don't think so at all. I just so we're very clear, I was a right-wing person. I was a Trump supporter. But that being said, I'm a musician, so I deal with a lot of people who aren't. And it's gotten worse since he's been out. Now that Biden's been in, it's a feeling of entitlement, I'm guessing, from them. Like they've got a haha, we won type of thing, and we're in control. We can do what we want, basically. There's not been any kind of ease of tensions whatsoever. I think it's been worse, and it's building up to something that's going to be really bad for, quite a few people.
Really? You think that this is going to reach a breaking point at some point in the near future?
I'm optimistic that it won't come to that, because before that happens, there's other things that can and probably will happen. There's already talk about certain states, basically seceding and coming up with their own government type of thing. They were trying to do that back when, Trump was around. They wanted to do that with California, Oregon, and Washington State. And they wanted to have, I forget the name of it. They wanted to break California up into 3 different states and do all this stuff with it. And it failed horribly. California, I think, is actually a pretty strong Republican place. But it's been deep in election fraud for years.
Right. Because we get the impression that it's sort of the Silicon Valley, incredibly Democrat. But your feeling is that's sort of a veneer?
I'll give you this, okay? I know a lot of musicians. I know a lot of record label people. Pretty well-known people, and a lot of them will come out and say that they were not pro-Trump, but most of them voted for Trump. Same thing with a lot of the tech people. They said that they're not Republicans, they're not for Trump. They voted for Trump. There's been again, I don't want to get you guys banned, so we'll just say there's been questionable results for elections going back in California for many years. California was that's the state that spawned both Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan as governors, went on to become president. And in the 80s, it was real strong Republican, and then all of a sudden that changed once they started bringing in illegal aliens, and they started really going to town with the crack epidemic. That was another George Bush thing, I think. But yeah, they've ruined California right now. I used to live in California, and the taxes there are 65%. And if you make over $200,000, I believe you have to pay like 70% taxes. And there's no way that you can realistically live there and do business there and, have any kind of success in terms of, unless you're a huge corporation already, but, you can't just start a business there and do business. It's almost impossible to pay rent there. For a 2-bedroom apartment in LA, you're looking at sometimes up to like $3,000. And, a lot of times people make, $10 an hour in California. So, I mean, they're working pretty much to pay their rent. That's about it.
You wonder how it sustains itself with conditions like that. I mean, I've heard about...
Oh, you have a lot of tech jobs there. So that's in San Francisco, Silicon Valley area, you have a lot of tech jobs. In LA, you have a lot of, industry, entertainment jobs. You have the docks there. So there's high paying jobs there, but a lot of the people that live there, they can't sustain it. That's why, everyone's leaving. I don't remember the number, but it's something like they lost billions of dollars in revenue from just people moving out of state in the last year.
Yeah, I've heard about...
I've heard something that they said that they've... It's the first time that the state population has shrunk in the last year rather than grown, I think, for like 30 years or 40 years or something ridiculous. I've heard a lot about sort of like changes about how you've got to make up your board or something. You've got to be more inclusive. So you've got to have someone from like different kind of ethnic backgrounds, sexual orientation, transgender people on there, things like that, without necessarily having any kind of experience to be on a board of a business. I find it a bit bizarre, really.
Yeah, it's he. You have to throw them a bone, otherwise they're going to throw a fit. But you know they're throwing a fits anyway. They're going after each other right now. It's not looking good. And you know there's no. If you have a leader, and I don't like to view them as leaders, I view them as representatives. I think they need to see themselves as representatives and not leaders. But you have leadership that doesn't know how to lead, you're going to have horrible results. And these people don't know how to lead. They're doing horrible things for us already, and we're not even, a month into this. And I don't see it ending well. I think people are going to, hopefully they're going to do it non-violently, and they're going to, just put a stop to it. But, I don't know. I don't see how we can realistically allow these things to go on. Especially if they're going to, already be a month in, not so great. And I can't even imagine them getting better.
How long do you think?
Opening up the border here. That's the other thing. They stopped the border construction wall, which I was never really in favor of a wall to begin with to a point. I mean, it's more of a symbol thing. But, 100% the wall worked with illegal immigration. Let's just pretend the coronavirus is real. You have thousands and thousands of people coming to our borders, not vaccinated, not being tested, and he's letting 11 million people into this country, and that doesn't make any kind of sense. I mean, if we have a pandemic, then we don't need to be letting anybody in this country unless they've been screened.
Is there travel bans, like via airports and stuff in the States now?
I don't believe that there are. Domestically, you can go anywhere you want. A lot of times, the airlines don't even really make you wear a mask. Depends on where you go and what have you. On the plane, they have you kind of wear it. But yeah, you can go domestically. You can go certain place. I think everything's open again. Europe was closed off for a while, but I'm pretty sure we can go to Europe now.
Right, you might not be able to come here. I don't think you can come here. You might have to sit in a government. A government
I
managed.
believe for international travel, you have to have proof of vaccination now. I think that's how that was announced.
Right. I think haven't they announced this weekend that they're setting up government paid hotel rooms for 2 weeks for international travellers to the UK?
Yeah, it started, didn't it? Last week or the week before.
Was it?
Yeah, so they've booked out massive hotels, and it's just pictures of people with their hands up on windows staring out aimlessly.
The thing is,
stay in their room for 2 weeks.
The hotels aren't allowed to open, so you might as well use them as makeshift detention facilities.
I wonder who's on a board as a non-executive director of Holiday Inn, or do you know what I mean? Because it'll be something like that, won't it? It'll be some kind of MP, we've Parliament here.
We've seen a lot of sort of MPs, members of Parliament, handing out contracts for PPE and testing contracts and track and trace to their buddies and whatnot. This sort of what do you call it? Crony capitalism. And I'm sure it's happening on your side of the pond as well.
Oh, for sure.
There's just so much money. We're just printing money faster than you would believe, and there's so much money sloshing about. I mean, oh God.
You look into the Great Reset. That's exactly what they were talking about. They've been talking about this for a while. About this money isn't good for us. We need to come up with a global currency. Anytime they say globe, I automatically know it's a lie to begin with. But they start talking about a global currency. The Pope talks about it all the time. He talks about a global government, global religion. They want the one world order type thing, and they really want this global currency thing to really kick off, and they want the Great Reset. They say it's good for poor people, and that's what they're trying to do. They want the poor people to demand it. That's why they're demanding. They get poor people worked up for a $15 minimum wage, and then you give them $15 minimum wage, and they start complaining that everything costs more. So that $15 means nothing because you're right back to paying more, losing more of your money.
Yeah. What's your...
That ties into the fractional reserve stuff you were talking about. Money is worthless. I mean, that's why, things only have value if you want them to.
Right, yeah. It's the sort of IOU system, isn't it? I mean, we've never really...
Pretty much, yeah.
We've never really talked about it, have we? Could you just...
Sorry, about 3 years ago, I think.
Did we?
Yeah.
To whom? Because I don't understand it.
Oh, not a guest. No, to each other. It was when back in the dark days of free guests.
Yeah, we were just riffing.
Yeah.
Could you lay it out, Anthony? The sort of premise behind fractional reserve banking.
Okay, essentially, you go to a bank, you apply for a loan. That bank, well, let's say I'll do a small number. Let's say you apply for $100 loan. They give you the $100 digitally. It's not real money. They give it to you digitally. That $100, though, they request it from their central bank for $1,000. So automatically, they're putting themselves $900 in the hole by borrowing $1,000. But they loan out that $1,000, and then they charge you the interest on the money. So every time that you pay, basically your interest, you're not going towards any of the balance, and you never can pay off your balance essentially by fractional reserve, because as soon as you get money, that money is no longer worth what you got it for. So you get $100, it's now worth 99. And they just keep diluting it down over and over again, basically until you have, the dollar now. I think it was worth something like 37 cents compared to what it used to be. That's just it's devaluing the currency. Thankfully, the United States has the petrodollar. That's why we're the world currency. That's the only reason why the U.S. still has any kind of economy left, pretty much. But yeah, these banks, they loan out the money. They keep getting interest on it. In the United States, I'll use that as an example. Every year we pay our taxes. That money for the tax that we're paying, we think it goes for certain things. It doesn't go to any of that. They say something like 8 to 10% goes just to pay the interest on the loans we have for the federal government. So that's trillions and trillions of dollars that we're paying just for interest, and that's not even paying the balance.
That's interest that's owed to the Federal Reserve.
Well, we pay it. Yeah, we pay it to the IRS. They pay it to the Federal Reserve, and then the Federal Reserve, they split it amongst themselves. They make up the people who. There are 12 banks that make up the Federal Reserve, and then the people who are on the heads of each bank makes up the board for the DTCC and the CEDE and Company. And they are the main financial people for the stock market. They're the main financial people for all of the banks. They are the World Bank, essentially. So you have these bankers who are in charge of our economy. They're also in charge of the stock market. So automatically the stock market right there is rigged. But again, you have to give them full control. I mean, they own your company once you go public. You own small piece, and that's the piece that you get to put on the stock market to make money off of. Mm-hmm. And that's essentially how stocks work. But yeah, fractional reserve, it's all market manipulation. It's fiat nonsense. For a while I was into crypto. I like the idea of blockchain. I don't like Bitcoin. I think it's overvalued, and I think there's definitely play going on with that. But for the time being, it's a good investment if you're actually going to invest in it.
Yeah, is that what medium term do you think?
I'm sorry, what was that?
In the medium term, I mean, a lot of people are just looking for a get rich quick thing, aren't they? But I
had Bitcoin when it was I don't know, I think it was like $600. I had some Bitcoin. I tried to get into it when it was only like, $5 back in 2010 or something. And I was told that it was by some law enforcement people. I was told that Bitcoin is a currency for pedophiles and internet drug traffickers. And that automatically anyone who uses it or collects it will be under federal investigation.
Wow.
And so that kept me away from it for a while. And then I realized what they were doing, and they used that to bring down Ross Ulbricht from Silk Road. They got him on Bitcoin stuff. And that's when I sort of found out that they were playing with Bitcoin back then.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's definitely, I'm not saying not to buy it, but, don't spend $35,000 to buy one of them right now.
No, it's too complicated for me. I don't even know what a digital wallet is.
It took me a while to learn the wallet. I had, in 2014, I lost 5 Bitcoin because I couldn't find my wallet password. It was it was one of those with a 27-letter key code or something.
Well, yeah, the financial system seems to be at the heart of a lot of the problems that we have. I remember the when was the Northern Rock run on the banks? Was it 2007?
I think so. It was when
2007,
the crash, wasn't it?
And yeah, this sort of ties in with the fractional reserve in that they're worried that there's going to be a run on the banks because if everyone tries to draw their money out, people will realise that the banks don't have your money. They don't have it. They've got 1/10 of it.
The idea behind what they're trying to do with silver right now. They're trying to buy a bunch of silver, trade it in for physical, and then say, hey, give us our silver. They don't have it. So they're going to, the price is going to skyrocket on it, and they're going to make a bunch of money, and then they're going to short silver pretty much because once it goes up and they realize that it's not scarce, then it's going to, drop down substantially, and they're going to make even a ton more money on the way down, even more than they made on the way up.
Do you think there's a way out of it? A way out of the financial system that we're stuck with?
There's ways out, but no one's going to do, what it's going to take to do. And, it's all well and fine to say that we want that, but, again, what are we going to replace it with right now? Everyone was talking about the Nasara thing. Are you guys familiar with that?
No.
I never. It was a Q thing, but they talked about it's basically a financial reset to where, all the idea was Donald Trump was going to take over the Federal Reserve and cancel all debt and stuff like that. And there is it's called Nasara. I never really got in too much into it, but basically it all sounded like what the Great Reset is, only instead of it having a happy ending that everyone's now debt free, now the Great Reset, and now we're going to have no money and, not have a way to support ourselves pretty much.
Yeah, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it, was the famous article from the World Economic Forum.
You'll own nothing and you'll be happy about it.
Yeah. Oh, my word. Well, on that happy note, we're knocking up on time already, Anthony. Hey, is there anything you want to promote? Where can we send people?
Real quick, Vorzug is going to be doing a new album here coming out this year. We're also doing some music videos. Go to the website at www.vorzug.info or go to theapollongroup.bandcamp.com for my record label, which is the Apollyon Group, and vorzug.info.
Cool. I'll put the links in the show notes, Eavesdroppers. So if you just scroll down, you'll find those links now. If you want to check out a bit of death metal.
I will share this on. I'm constantly being banned from social media, but I will. I will share this in any places I'm still available to go to.
Excellent. Right. Well, let's hang on the line, Anthony, for 1 minute while we play ourselves out. It's been good to talk to you. It's been fun.
You too. A lot of fun.
Best of luck with well, the shit storm that's happening over there. Catch you on the flip side. Don't touch that dial. Right, then we're back.
The dwarf, the cripple, and the mother of madness.
That was our chat with Anthony Hoyes from Vorzug.
Yeah.
Check it out. Check out the band. Links will be in the description. That was a good chat. We covered a lot of stuff, a lot of interesting stuff, and I'm sure we'll speak to Anthony in the future about other topics.
It's always nice to get an American perspective, or just a different perspective. Across the patch, really.
Yeah. We're lacking living in parallel universes at the moment, it seems.
Yeah.
The madness that's been going on over there, particularly this last year. So, yeah, it's good. Nice guy. Enjoyed it. Shall we do some housekeeping?
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Housekeeping.
Execute Order 69, dude!
Housekeeping.
This is a value for value podcast. No adverts, no paywalls, no corporate sponsors. So if you found this podcast valuable, please consider returning some value. Helping us continue to do this. We need your support in producing this podcast. And in return, you shall receive a producer credit. There's loads of ways. Loads of ways to help us out. Leave us an iTunes review.
Yeah, we've got one.
Ooh,
another 5-star iTunes review from JSpaceman.
Spaceman.
Great show with interesting and varied topics, delivered with a slice of humour and a good mix of conversation and opinions. Thumbs up emoji. Give it a whirl. Tornado emoji. Thanks, JSpaceman.
Oh, I see what you've done there.
Yeah.
A whirl.
A whirl.
Yeah. Well.
Excellent.
Good. Well, we appreciate that. Yeah, iTunes reviews are a good way to support us. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. That helps.
Yeah, hearts at the moment.
Yeah.
Lighting it up, aren't we?
Yeah. Stalk us on social media. Instagram is the best way to catch us. Not really active on the others because there's fucking hell pits. Twitter's a fucking hell pit. I hate Twitter. Facebook's for old people, so Instagram it is. You can even send us memes. Send us memes for Instagram. If you send us memes to put on Instagram, that frees up more time for us to actually produce the fucking show.
For Phil to produce the show.
Yeah. You can send us artwork.
Yeah.
You know, I put new artwork on our episode last week. I put the Union of the Unwanted episode artwork up. So if you submit some artwork that is 1,400 pixels squared, between 1,400 and 3,000 pixels square, preferably at the higher end, and we like it, we might just use it. And that will be our artwork for that episode. No Agenda do this every week. And it's great, and it's a good way for people to get involved. If you're a talented artist, a digital artist, send us some artwork. Email us at thearmisinquisition@gmail.com if you want to get in touch. You can send us news articles, video clips, buy some merch from the Amish loot chest.
Yeah.
Most importantly, toss a fucking coin.
Toss a coin to your witcher, O Valley of Plenty.
Feces.
O Valley of Plenty. Oh.
Because I'm literally a communist.
To your witcher, O Valley of Plenty.
People have got to understand vaccination is going to be, in the end, your route to liberty.
Feces.
Yeah. Just go to the website, armisinquisition.com. You can find the How Do I Become a Producer tab. There's loads of details there. You can find the pay by button if you want to give us a one-off donation or a monthly. It all helps make this possible. Yeah, or check out the show notes. All the links will be there. I should give a shout out to Robbie from Out of the Blank. I did a guest spot on his podcast again that came out this week. Episode 682, it was, of Out of the Blank. If you want to hear me butcher Procession of the Equinoxes and Celestial Dynamics...
Always.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
That's a must listen.
And Robbie's going to come on here as well in March.
Right.
Okay.
March, I think. Early March.
Right.
Check the diary. Right, so I should thank the producers for episode 169. There we have Dean McCoy, Jethro, Tull, BigSpuds, Gav Scott, Nomae, NosNoj, Rob Walker, JSpaceman, and Anonymous. You're so amazing in your love.
Feces.
Hang on, I think I fucked up here. I have. I fucked up.
Oh, no.
Oh, my God. I'm just not amazing enough, am I?
They are.
Yeah.
So amazing in their love.
Come here, Goose, you big stud.
Because I'm literally
The best mate.
It really bothers me.
I've been coming to terms with the fact that I am
Fucking vegan. The dwarf. The
Currant.
The
Grape.
The
homophobe.
The winds.
Tossilizumab. The fucking vegan. The
blind dog-faced pony soldier.
The
Asna.
The
corn pop. Cunts.
The number 11.
The
Slushy deposits.
The blind man. The
Communist.
On the horizon.
The cripple and the mother of
Funny bickering.
From
like a judgment day and terminating mode, like.
Bring it on.
Yes!
I don't get it, never will.
Yeah, thanks for your support for another week. Fucking hell, shit tons to get through, man.
Ooh, what's that synth? That's a new synth at the end.
Tell us about the synth.
Yeah, before we move on.
I just found it online. Royalty free.
Ooh.
You know.
Wow.
It's a bit Stranger Things.
Yeah, well, it's so hot right now, isn't it? 80s.
Yeah.
So hot.
And especially podcast logos with the like 80s graphics, like neon 8-bit. Is it 8-bit? The old lot of video game graphics and neon lights and shit.
Vaporwave.
Yeah.
COVID-19 news.
Put on your fucking muzzle if you go to the shop.
The magic vaccine. A big fat shot in the ass.
From hell.
Oh! You know, it's just, super painful.
Like a judgment day and terminating mode, like.
More lives this year than any other year for the past 100 years.
2 million people have to die.
This is such a crock of shit. This is Funny bickering!
Who the fuck's that?
Yeah, me!
Sarilumab.
The vaccine wars are upon us.
Absolutely.
Friday.
I thought we were quite diplomatic in the, I say we as the country, not us as the podcast, but we were quite diplomatic in kind of dealing with that situation, I think.
The situation is as follows.
Londonderry this morning, it was hard to imagine that less than 6 miles away, the Irish border was about to become the centre of an astonishing escalation in the dispute over vaccine supply. This afternoon, the European Commission announced that due to concerns about access to the AstraZeneca vaccine, it was introducing export controls on all vaccines leaving the EU.
Today, we have developed a system that will allow us to know whether vaccines are being exported from the EU. This increased transparency will also come with the responsibility for the EU to authorise, with our member states, these vaccine exports.
Here, the government tried hard to stay out of the vaccine dispute.
I'm not going to comment on the EU's own discussions with those manufacturers. What we need to focus on is making sure that UK residents and the NHS here gets the vaccines that's required. And as I say, we're confident that we will be receiving what we expected in the days and weeks ahead.
There is one place where the EU could not control exports, the Irish border. The painfully negotiated Irish protocol in the Brexit deal forbids restrictions of trade, but there's an override clause. Article 16 says if the protocol's application leads to serious economic, societal or environmental difficulties, then the EU or the UK may unilaterally take appropriate safeguard measures. This afternoon, the EU published a regulation blocking vaccine exports across the border, saying this is justified as a safeguard measure pursuant to Article 16. Astonishingly, the European Commission did not tell London, or even, I am told, Dublin, that...
They didn't tell Dublin. Dublin's a member state, the capital of Southern Ireland. The EU didn't even tell them that they were going to implement a fucking hard border on the island of Ireland.
Bad idea.
Yeah, and, you know, you don't want to get Arlene Foster on your case.
With 8 MPs.
She's fucking, tell you what, she's formidable, isn't she?
Yeah.
I mean, she destroyed Theresa May. Pretty much single-handedly ended her career.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was that deal? Was it $1 billion per MP?
Something like that.
She got out of the Conservatives?
I think she got... Well, I heard it was £1 billion, wasn't it? Basically. For 8 votes. Or whatever it was. 8 seats.
I would query that. I think it might be $1 billion each. Right. Anyway, she had her over a barrel, didn't she, for what, a month,
Yes.
a year, 18 months, anyway.
They were about to take this provocative action. A Number 10 spokesperson said the UK was seeking an urgent explanation from Brussels and was carefully considering what the government's next steps might be. This evening, the Prime Minister had a phone call with the Irish Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, to express his concerns. In Northern Ireland, right across the political spectrum, there is fury with the EU.
Well, you know, I think it's quite incredible. It's an
Here she is.
act of aggression, actually. Less than a month into us leaving the European Union, we see them act in this unilateral way. It shows to me that all of their words around protecting Northern Ireland and protecting the Belfast Agreement were just that, words, and actually what they've been doing is using Northern Ireland as a pawn in their negotiations.
A short time ago, the Prime Minister called the European Commission President, Ursula von der Leyen.
How do you reckon that conversation went?
Well, alas, and alack, and this is terrible, and
something about Athens and Sparta. Fucking bumbling idiot.
To express his grave concerns.
Oh, totally grave.
And there were signs that the Commission was frantically backtracking, with sources there claiming the regulation invoking Article 16 of the protocol had been published in error.
Yeah, so basically, Northern Ireland has like a special arrangement with the EU because of Brexit. And the main thing was we don't want a hard border on the island of Ireland because after decades of bloody violence, we had the peace process in the late 90s and we don't want to put that at risk. So Northern Ireland was given sort of a special status where there would be it would be part of the EU customs arrangement. But there was this sort of backstop to that called Article 16, where, in some sort of emergency situation, either the EU or the UK unilaterally could trigger Article 16 and that would essentially implement customs checks and therefore a hard border on the island of Ireland. And they decided to do this and sort of try and stop the export of medical supplies to a third nation. I mean, it's just fucking outrageous, isn't it?
Where is the AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured? Is it manufactured in Europe? Is that the issue? No.
The issue is that the EU has made a fucking clusterfuck of the vaccine rollout because it's such a fucking lumbering, slow, bureaucratic nightmare. They were 3 months behind the curve. That's why we didn't sign up for the vaccine procurement programme of the EU, because you know what they're like. Part of the reason they were held up 3 months was them having to sort out the instructions being translated into 27 different languages at the last minute. You know, it's just it's a bureaucratic nightmare. It's a talking shop. These people get paid to talk and not do. And so they're months behind. Mm-hmm. So this has brought political pressure on them, and they need a way out or a scapegoat. And so they wanted to start saying, hang on, AstraZeneca, your UK factory is outputting, because we've been through all the teething problems months ago, and our factories are producing regularly, but the Belgian factory is 3 months behind, and they're still working through these niggles. This is how I understand it. I don't know anything. So the idea is that the EU seem to have got it in their heads that they're worried that Northern Ireland was going to be a back door for exporting vaccine from the EU to the UK, when our vaccine production isn't having any problems.
Right.
I don't get it. Unless it's the Pfizer. Well, then they try to interfere with our contracts, the UK government contracts with other companies, you know. See, the UK put a clause in the AstraZeneca contract that any doses manufactured in the UK would get first dibs on. That's a part of the contract, the stipulation. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Anyway, that was Friday about tea time, and obviously the backlash was fucking monumental.
Yeah.
Another extraordinary twist, because in the past few minutes I've been told by a senior source within the European Union that the EU is now going to withdraw this controversial Article 16 about Northern Ireland, having released it earlier today, having faced this absolute torrent of criticism from Westminster, from Dublin, from Belfast, and indeed from other member states. They have immediately buckled. Our statement hasn't come out yet. I'm expecting it to come out in the next few minutes. As to why this mistake was made, well, I'm told that it is a combination of two things. One is that it was a simple error.
You buying that? An error?
Yeah, we made a mistake. No.
According to the source I spoke to, that they didn't foresee the furore. Perhaps they didn't look at the ramifications. That in itself would seem extraordinary. The second thing is that it was meant because they had focused on vaccines, and frankly, it would seem to me that officials within the EU simply didn't look at the bigger picture. So they are going to have to row back. This is embarrassing for the European Union, for the European Commission, for the President Ursula von der Leyen, and it happens at a time when tensions are very, very high in this row that started between AstraZeneca and European Commission and has now moved into international diplomacy and indeed contract law, this blame game about who takes the blame for the EU not having enough doses of this vaccine. And as one person said to me today, this may be about political point scoring, but it is also about lives. That is where we started, and we finished the day with the EU having to withdraw a bit of legislation that it had only put into place a few hours before.
So as far as I know, there hasn't been any developments today. That was yesterday, I think that was from. So it's interesting. Geopolitically, it's an interesting sort of situation, isn't it?
Mm. I think it was probably just a bit of a power play, really, wasn't it? Do you not think?
Just trying it on, aren't they?
Yeah,
because
that's what I mean.
You know, they fucked up, and the nation states, you know, the Germans and the French and everyone else are kicking off. They're saying, you know, where's this vaccine? How come the US, Israel, UK seem to be rolling out theirs pretty rapid, and we're struggling for doses? What's going on?
Have they not got their own sort of pharmaceutical company? Is there a French pharmaceutical company and a German one?
Yeah.
Why aren't they just making it?
It's a big French pharmaceutical company, Sanofi.
There's only... Oh, by the way, the AstraZeneca was only granted emergency use authorization on the Friday when they did this. It's only just been granted by the European... EU. EAU, I think it is. EMA, sorry. Yeah, but AstraZeneca have a factory in Belgium. to produce the AstraZeneca vaccine. Right. But they're 3 months behind because the EU was 3 months behind placing the order behind the UK. So they're going through these problems, that manufacturing hiccups and issues 3 months down the line.
It's knee-jerk reaction, isn't it?
Yeah. It's panic.
Pretty irresponsible.
The only thing I've seen today, Phil, is that some of the European newspapers are reporting that the EU Commission have unwittingly given the best advert for Brexit.
I know, yeah.
So it could be other nation states leaving. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, if you weren't sure about what the EU was about when the Brexit vote happened, then you've just got a better idea, haven't you?
Mm.
Politicians, talking shops, they're all the same.
Yeah.
Like, one bloated bureaucracy is enough for me, for one country. Don't need another one, another layer over the top. But, we've been through all this. The vote was done. It tried to get sabotaged and overturned and, for several years, but it's actually done now. So I think we can drop Brexit. For fuck's sake. Yeah, anyway. There's some interesting news today, actually. The WHO, on this sort of topic, WHO put a bulletin out today urging the UK, once it's vaccinated its vulnerable demographics, to donate the rest of its vaccines to developing countries.
Oh, right, okay.
Rather than, because our vaccine rollout plan, once we've got the 80s and then the 70 plus, then healthcare workers and people who are clinically vulnerable, to then roll it down and then do over 50s, over 40s. I looked on the website and, to see when I would be eligible. And it said there was 37 million people ahead of me in the queue.
In the queue.
Yeah. Just out of, curiosity.
And technically, is that not something like 74 million injections first? 2 doses.
Yeah, for 2 doses, yeah. Yeah, the WHO is going to push for the rich country, us. How much have we spent this year? 800 billion? Rich countries like us to donate. So that's an interesting move. I wonder how our government will react to that.
I think we've got a lot on order from not just the AstraZeneca one, but the new ones as well, and the Johnson & Johnson one. We've got some big orders. I think it's somewhere in the region of 360 million doses. So we're going to have plenty to give should we want to. And I think it would perhaps be it would be seen as a good thing. I mean, globally, geopolitically, trade with other countries, etc. We're looking at a new trade deal with a big group today, like Japan and Canada and all kinds of things. If we're if we've got a vaccine to spare, perhaps that could be used to help sweeten deals in those areas.
Giving our vaccines to poor countries like Canada, Japan.
Yeah. No, in the region now. I mean, there'll be African countries in there. I didn't read the full list, but...
Well, what you could do is you could swap 40 million doses of, Johnson & Johnson's vaccine for
maple syrup.
Like a year's worth of uranium or something.
Great.
Or what's that thing? What's that thing that is it? I want to say cobalt in
coltan.
Coltan. That's it. Is in the touch screens.
Yeah, what are we going to do with that? We don't make anything here.
Well,
then sell that to China.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll buy it and then trade it with Japan.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
A wheel within a wheel.
The wheels of commerce continue to turn.
Empire building.
God, don't say that. We'll get banned. Sticking with the EU. The EU aren't very happy with Tanzania.
The European Union granted 27 million euros of European taxpayers' money to Tanzania to combat the effects of COVID. Now, we have a regime in the country saying that there is no COVID in the country, with rather bizarre explanations. So once again, we have a government who's refused to follow guidelines from the World Health Organization, a government that has refused to provide statistics, and still we're giving them 27 million euros. I would like you to inform the members of our committee about the money we have given to Tanzania, what were the criteria for giving this money, and especially what is happening with this money. We are talking about European taxpayers' money, and I have difficulties that we grant money to a government which is obviously not trying to cooperate in a decent manner. So could you please answer my question? And if you're not able now, then I would expect you to provide us the written details within 48 hours. Thank you.
This is, I'm quite critical of international aid. I know a lot of people think that if you think that, you must be xenophobic or racist or something. If you're against giving,
it's quite well documented, isn't it? That a lot of it is just pilfered, isn't it?
Well, to me, it's taking money from poor people in rich countries and giving it to rich people in poor countries.
Oh yeah, that seems to what happens, isn't it?
That seems to what happens to most of it. Implementation's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just thought that was quite amusing. They prayed it away in Tanzania. They prayed COVID away.
Oh, maybe we could try that next.
Yeah, prayers and herbal remedies. And no COVID.
It's quite sunny in Tanzania all the time. I don't know where it is in Africa. Is it like in the middle? Is it on the equator?
Yeah, and young population.
Yeah, warm all the time. Fine.
Yeah, they don't seem to... Well, who knows?
And a healthy respect for God.
Is what matters.
Yes.
Do we have any international airports either?
Are you planning a holiday?
Maybe. It's no COVID.
Yeah, why not? I'll just remind you of this clip that we played before. It's Kerry Mullis, the inventor of the PCR test.
Oh, God, not this again.
Misuse PCR is not quite... I don't think you can misuse PCR. No, the results, the interpretation of it. See, if you can say... If they could find this virus in you at all, and with PCR, if you do it well, you can find almost anything in anybody. It starts making you believe in the sort of Buddhist notion that everything is contained in everything else, right? I mean, because if you can amplify one single molecule up to
find anything in anything. Anyway, with that in mind, news from China.
COVID-19 was found on ice cream made in eastern China, prompting a recall. According to Chinese government leaders, the company that makes the ice cream is sealed, and its employees are being tested for the virus. So far, there's been no indication anyone contracted COVID from the ice cream. The government said most of the 29,000 cartons in the batch had not been sold yet.
Amish Ben was like on that a month ago.
Yeah, I was.
The ice cream COVID.
Wondering about how many tests he did and the false positive rate of what kind of tests we used. I was just throwing a thought experiment into the ring.
Yeah, that was the thing. We said, how many cartons did it say? 23,000 in that batch. So, if you tested each carton, that's well within the realms, isn't it? Is it not? What's the false positive on it?
They don't know.
It depends on the test.
Oh, right, okay. It's speculated, isn't it?
They can estimate
publicize it. Yeah.
They just hold it up to a strong light bulb.
I'll tell you what, if you're doing tests like under marquees, they've had to hire loads of people to do these tests.
That's what Mike said, wasn't it?
Yeah, people who've never worked in a lab before or have very little experience. Who knows what the false positive rate is?
Yeah.
Well, it's in ice cream. It's in ice cream, though. So,
yeah, no. Thank God that's not been on the BBC.
Anyway, moving on. We've often talked about possible negative consequences of government-mandated lockdowns and school closures and things. And I picked up one that a lot of people might be sleeping on this week. And it comes from Talk Radio. There was a guy rang into Talk Radio, and he sounded like he was on the edge. he was breaking down, and like the presenter had to sort of calm him down and give him a bit of honour therapy. Because this guy's living on his own. He works for an advertising company, actually. He's like a team leader for an advertising company, having to lay people off, care for his elderly parents, and all the rest of it. And it was all just getting too much for him. And he brings up a consequence of online working that I don't think we've heard before, which I thought was really interesting.
Absolutely. What I do is very high pressured, and I'm working probably 15 hours a week over what I should do, because they've got rid of so many people, and a lot of people that they've got rid of, they've shipped the jobs off to outsourcing. So I've not only got to do my job, I've got to teach people in India, China, how to just work. So I'm not just doing that. It doesn't help today that India have got a bank holiday, but so I've had to do all of their jobs as well.
If your job can be done remotely, why would your employer restrict themselves to just look at the UK when someone in India can do it for 20% of the salary?
Yeah, this is what a family member, basically, I know, they part of the thing that they managed was this kind of thing where they kind of exported jobs, basically, to do with like accounts, and they went over to like India to sort of like teach them how to do it, basically. The problem was that they found was that the customer service was awful. So people couldn't understand, like if someone's got a strong accent, you can't tell what they're saying, or the grasp of English isn't great, then it makes it really difficult to kind of... so some of it ended up coming back, basically, because of those reasons.
Yeah, we've all had those experiences of going for in a call centre and being redirected to somewhere in the Far East. And, you know, we have, like, how many different accents are there in the UK? Like 50? I mean, how can, you know, a native Indian speaker is not going to understand me with the best will in the world? You know, if English is the second language, they might really struggle. And, this is difficult. But it seems that this is happening, and it's probably going to happen more because at-home working is being accelerated. It provides this opportunity.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's something I'd never really considered, the fact that, you know, it's just as easy to get someone else, like you said, for...
Depends on the job, doesn't it? Depends on the job, but there will be jobs at risk. Just to finish this... sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, it's just the same as sort of car manufacturing or any kind of manufacturing, isn't it? But, you know, it goes to the place where you can make it for the cheapest.
Yeah. Just to finish this clip.
But
you're under an incredible amount of pressure, John.
People that are on furlough, you've got to realise, if you're on furlough and your companies find another way, they're going to find another way, and they're going to offshore your jobs, and you won't have your job anymore.
What would you say if Boris Johnson or the government were listening? What would you say?
Yeah, feel sorry for him. He's having to lay off people he's worked with for years and then remotely train people in India and China to do their jobs, plus do his own job. Yeah, people need to be awake to this possibility.
Yeah.
So...
What a downer.
Let's move on. Unheard, the pop-up YouTube channel, had a human rights lawyer on, and he was talking about the lack of parliamentary scrutiny that we've seen over the last 12 months. I thought this was interesting.
Only a yes or a no. And I think that...
We've changed the law 65 times in the last year, and none of them have been subject to a parliamentary vote.
No, I think we've changed the law over 300 times in the last year over relating to COVID.
Right.
But 65 just for the lockdown. So the criminal laws, these criminal laws that self-isolation, face coverings, lockdown, those areas that we collectively think of as the lockdown.
Just keep an ear out for the mechanism that they've used to get around the parliamentary scrutiny.
Those have all been done without using an emergency procedure under the Public Health Act 1984, which allows for this kind of emergency procedure.
I just thought that was quite...
Using an emergency procedure under the Public Health Act 1984, which...
Is that to do with AIDS?
Oh, it could be, yeah.
Yeah, it's about the right time, isn't it?
Don't know.
Yeah, because there's some dodgy stuff in this. It's a Sin TV program, and that was, a large part to do with like the AIDS epidemic, wasn't it? So, I seem to remember them mentioning the Public Health Act in that and locking people up basically when they had AIDS.
Yes, they did. Yes, I remember. Yeah,
did they? Did they sort of intern people who were HIV positive?
Yeah.
I've not seen this. I know everyone's raving about it, but I don't watch telly, so.
Well, it's worth a watch if you can.
What platform's it on?
Channel 4.
Just watch it on 4OD or whatever it is, All 4, whatever it's called now.
I had no idea they'd done that in the AIDS pandemic crisis, whatever.
Yeah, and then I don't know how. And then a story is like one of the guys in it, his dad goes to Nigeria, and when he's in Nigeria, basically there's people locked up in hospitals with AIDS and just left to die with no food or water, and stuff like that. So I don't know, if that's true as well. Imagine it is. Yeah. So.
Well, on that happy note, do you know Dr. Hillary?
Yeah.
The one who's clinging onto his hair on ITV.
He must have a sunbed at home.
Yes.
Dr. Hillary. I remember him from my very young childhood.
Yeah, so do I, actually.
On GMTV, would it have been? Or ITV in the mornings, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's got the answer to all our problems.
And we do have a small but very, very loud, very shouty minority who are just denying everything.
I wish we could vaccinate against stupidity.
Yeah, the old stupid vaccine.
Yeah, I think it's a bit
super painful,
a bit more nuanced.
Well,
than just denying everything, isn't it?
He does go on with an anecdote.
Indeed.
I mean, I was at a shop the other day. The shop's doing everything right, one person in at a time, and that person came out, and the person outside said, I forgot my mask, and the other person said, here, borrow mine.
Yeah.
Did he intervene then, Dr. Hillary?
I don't know. Do you remember a few weeks ago when he got caught in a shop without his mask on?
Oh, no.
And he had to do a grovelling apology.
Should have just borrowed one.
He should have done, yeah. Oh, fuck me. Anyway, that's the COVID news, I think. Well, there is more, but time's marching on, and it's been a massive week for the globalists. World Economic Forum week.
Forum.
It's the Klaus Schwab-tastic get-together, but it's virtual this year. For obvious reasons. Yeah, it's gone online. And I've got some Vox Pops here from DW. Who else? Deutsche Welle. And here's what the locals think about Davos going online.
Davos hasn't been this quiet in decades. No signs of the usual hustle and bustle. Instead, a thick blanket of snow. The locals like it that way. I enjoy it. There are no gratings, there is little traffic, it is quiet, there's fewer guests. I would be happy to not have the WEF here anymore.
Everything is open, no security checks, a lot less people. Of course I like it.
Yeah, they essentially shut the town down. They stop all public transport, the security checks, because, this is where all the richest, most influential people and politicians in the world meet up once a year to tell us how we're going to implement the Great Reset and the Fourth Industrial Revolution and build back better. And shut up, slave, and all the rest of it. So you got to keep the locals in check, haven't you? And it turns out the locals prefer it, that it's gone online.
Good.
But that won't do. That won't do.
Okay.
That piece was leading into an interview with Adrian Monk. He's the managing director of the World Economic Forum. And he was quizzed about this. It's quite hypocritical to have all these billionaires on private jets turn up at Davos and then lecture every fucker else about climate change every year. So the DW anchor sort of probed him.
Yes, it has been on...
Gently.
Online. It's been without the private jets and all the trappings of a usual Davos. A greener Davos this year? Could this online WEF be here to stay?
His response is priceless. This is proper globalist. Shut up, you fucking filthy pig.
Funnily enough, you say that, but actually private jet traffic into Davos is no more than during a busy week in Zurich art fair. In actual fact, emissions in Davos, the town, go down during Davos week, so the air is cleaner, purer, and nicer.
That's because they shut the fucking town down. They don't allow buses and stuff. This fucking schmuck, this globalist pig.
When we're in town than when the locals are left to themselves with buses, cars, and everything running through the centre of their lovely alpine town.
How dare you fucking pigs! Fucking this beautiful alpine town, and you fucking scum ruin it with your buses and your public transport and your cars.
Hang on a minute. I thought we were supposed to get on the bus. I thought I was supposed to not use my car and go on the bus. But I'm so confused now.
Online, it's been without the...
Oh, my God. Yeah, I thought I was saying... This guy has no soul as well. I mean, he didn't crack a smile through the entire interview. It was like a 7... He looked the most... He did look like a psychopath, like just no emotion whatsoever.
Well, it's common, isn't it? It's that thing, the psychopath test. Basically, what's the difference between a psychopath in prison and a psychopath running a Fortune 500 company or a FTSE 100 company? Yeah. Normally, one's rich and one's poor.
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, I found his thing pretty astounding. They should be grateful that we come here. Fucking slobs.
It must be, yeah. Go on.
I was going to move on because, as we mentioned before, climate is top of the agenda. Net zero by 2050 is what everyone's pushing.
Yep.
And there was a roundtable discussion. Dr. Belinda Gates was there. Mark Carney, former... was he JP? No, Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs, Bank of Canada, Bank of England. Now he is UN Special Envoy on Climate.
Oh, right, okay.
His new role. So he's nuts deep in climate change. Bill Winters was there. He's the Chief Exec of Standard Charter. And this roundtable was all talking about climate offsets. So this is this new market that they're going to produce out thin air, where carbon is going to be taxed, your carbon footprint is going to be taxed, companies' carbon footprints are going to be taxed, and this is going to create this new economic instrument.
To stop you from being able to burn fossil fuels. Yeah.
And, it's this redistribution of wealth sort of thing, but to get to net zero by 2050. Anyway, let's hear from Dr. Bill. He talks about the pricing as it stands.
As I went to do offsets for myself personally, long-term offsets, the prices were about $400 a ton. That's very, very high. And everything we think of here, it's 51 billion tons of emissions. And so
$400 a ton, 51 billion emissions. Quick, back of the calculator maths. That means a global market of $20.4 trillion per year of this carbon market. Anyway.
Nice.
Yeah, it's good if you can get a piece of it, isn't it?
Everything has to be considered as a percentage of that. For a company that's a electric utility, a steel company, a cement company, any sort of industrial thing, you see the increase in price that they'd have to have is still significant. So innovation is going to be key to this as we do the carbon markets in parallel with funding the innovation activities.
So part of the mechanism is that if you have a cement company that produces carbon, you have to trade that carbon with a company that doesn't produce carbon. You will sell them your carbon footprint. This is the marketplace, the $20 trillion marketplace that they're going to create. And Bill Winters, chief executive, Standard Chartered, the bank, gives us an insight out into how this will work on a global level.
Look at the carbon equation in the world. Something like 90% of the practical nature-based solutions, the target areas, are sitting in developing markets. Whereas on the flip side, something like 90% of the natural offset buyers, at least so far, are coming in developed markets.
So the people selling the carbon are all in the West, developed countries. The people who are going to be buying it and using these solutions to offset their carbon are going to be in developing countries. That's the way the trade is going to work.
So we wanted to make sure that we balance that out so that we really have both sides of the market represented in the efforts as we get into to finalizing the implementation plans to take this framework and put it into reality. Some have said that the carbon offset market will result in a meaningful transfer of wealth from the developed to the developing economies. There's clearly some truth to that too.
So there you have it. It's transition of wealth from developed countries to developing countries. And China falls into the bracket of developing countries as well.
Of course it does.
Yeah. So we're going to be selling our carbon to China. So next time you build your house, you need to have an RSJ. The carbon tax on that will go to the Chinese. So it's going to work. None of these fuckers are elected, by the way.
Is this actually going to happen then, this carbon tax thing?
It's on its way, baby. Climate change. Climate change. We've got 7 years now, haven't we, Bo Jiden?
I can't afford it.
Well, don't buy it then. You fucking pig. These fuckers don't care. They're billionaires.
Exactly.
Don't matter them.
Aren't we about to open a coal mine in Cumbria?
Yeah. Under the sea.
Under the sea.
It's a special coal, though, isn't it?
Carbonless.
Is it for making steel or something? Coke coal? Coke coal?
Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
You know.
Yeah.
It's just like ridiculously polluting, isn't it? Making anything, but you know.
I believe that some of the fossil fuel technologies have really come on leaps and bounds as far as pollution, like carbon capture and stuff. They have made strides.
Oh yeah.
In the West, anyway. I don't know what the Chinese coal plants are like.
Well, you've got to be able to capture all that carbon so you can ship it over to the developing countries.
To bury or whatever.
Shall we hear from the World Economic Forum's newest member?
Who's this?
Robert Downey Jr.
Iron Man.
Emissions have to go down.
Robert, would you agree with that? And what actions will you take with your coalition, and how will you decide your investments?
Well, we took a lot of time to kind of try to build up. The nice thing about limited mobility is I was able to really get started.
I love that turn of phrase. Limited mobility, he calls it.
Yeah.
What's he got?
Lockdowns.
Lockdown.
Oh, right.
It's a great thing about limited mobility. Maybe he's been read in, and this is the new technology they'll start using for us in the next, over the next 5 years. We're going into
industries.
We're going into a limited mobility period now till the spring.
working on those 10,000 hours I need to be capable of even participating. But in talking to,
yeah, it was a fucking cringe fest. He's headed up some new fund who's going to be investing in green tech, and they were just fawning all over him. It was made me sick. I couldn't resist this one though.
And Robert, inspiring the next generation to build back better, to be involved, is that how you feel when you talk about democratizing funds?
Yeah, we've got to get Build Back Better in there. I know what you're thinking. Why is he doing this?
Money.
Yeah.
Robert, can I ask you, you say that you 15 years ago, you wouldn't have imagined talking on this platform and talking to the president of the World Economic Forum. Where did the passion to make a difference come from? And when did it happen?
Well, interestingly enough,
it ain't interesting.
It's funny being able.
It's not funny either.
Able to play someone who needed technology to get themselves out of a cave where one of their own weapons had given them shrapnel in their heart. I mean, I don't know what Stan Lee was thinking back in the 60s, but it was a bit of a time loop from the Vietnam era to kind of where we had found ourselves now. And I like studying deep on a subject. This happened to be genre filmmaking. But if you'd asked me, I was doing a biopic about a real person. So when that contract ran out, I had been asked to be a keynote speaker at the Remars convention, and I had done a series for YouTube on AI. And when we got back and people said, more people watched the first episode of that or more listens or downloads, whatever you call it nowadays, than like Joe Rogan's biggest podcast. And I thought, I
humble brag.
think I'm supposed to lean into this.
Have you heard of this? This AI series is done for YouTube?
No.
I haven't fucking heard of it. What's it going on about?
Don't know.
Sales patter.
I think this is bigger than Joe Rogan.
Nah.
He's Iron Man.
Do you know, I think he is becoming a parody of himself.
I think it's unfortunate, but it does sound like he's just become his character. He's been playing. How long has he been playing Iron Man for?
15 years, he said there. It was a 15-year contract.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Weird.
I think it's kind of become his character in Tropic Thunder. The method actor.
Yeah. God,
yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, but he's there. He's a member. So.
He's a bit of a member.
Yeah. We have a load of other stuff on the World Economic Forum that I will save till next week because I had a bit of a deep dive in looking to infiltrate the movement.
When's Klaus Schwab coming on?
It was that Bill Gates roundtable. That the what do you call it? A moderator. The moderator of that discussion was Nicole Schwab.
Oh.
Keep it in the family. I think we have a new segment now. I think it should be called Piers Morgan Skewers Politicians.
Oh.
And this week's victim was Theresa Coffey.
Oh, good. Hang on, you've missed my producer credit then.
No, I'm giving you one.
For fuck's sake.
You're a Viscount, remember?
Oh, yeah. I'm a Lord Inquisitor.
Okay, whatever.
For us having the worst death rate in the world is because of the public. They're too old and they're too fat.
I think that's a very insulting thing that you've just said.
You just said it.
I'm conscious that there's a variety of factors which will have led to people, sadly, being ill during this time, sadly, that translating into deaths. I'm conscious that this is a very serious impact. Our own Prime Minister was in hospital in intensive care himself last April. I'm conscious that we are wanting to make sure we have a wraparound support.
Sorry, what did you find insulting,
which we have done
Ms.
throughout
Coffey?
this pandemic.
Out of interest, what did you find insulting? You said two reasons.
This is where the excuse. She realises she's in shit. Yeah. You need an excuse. What excuse can you come up with? How do you get out of this situation?
Asteroid!
If it, you know, back in the old days of phoning before Zoom, they would say they were going through a tunnel or something, wouldn't they? What would you come up with?
Well, I know what happens, so I can't.
Okay, let's find out.
For the fact we have the worst
I also need to point out that you started this interview late. Unfortunately, I have to go to other broadcasters as well.
Yeah, because she's so in demand, isn't she? Yeah. Teresa Coffey. Can't wait to get her. Is she like culture secretary or something?
It's something daft, isn't it? Yeah.
And I wish that we'd had more time when we were.
Well, you can come back anytime. We haven't seen
I appreciate that.
I haven't interviewed you since May, so you can come back anytime. It was you that boycotted the programme, right? So please don't play the "you haven't given me enough time" card, because we gave you 8 months and you didn't turn up.
Let me ask you this. Much for this. Yeah, but we were due to start at 8:15.
I understand it.
I'm really excited about the opportunities to kickstart for young people.
I understand.
But I'm sorry, Piers. I'm going to have to go to another broadcaster.
I just wanted you to clarify, given you said I was insulting.
Piers, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to go.
You're going to go. You're not going to explain why you think I was the one insulting.
You've already had 20 minutes of my time. I appreciate your time as well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Miss Coffey.
You want to see Susanna Reid's face? So next to him.
What's she doing? She chewing a wasp.
Yeah, you can read her eyes, man. She. Yeah, as soon as she starts, Teresa starts backing off, saying, it was one thing she said, something about, you've already had 20 minutes of my time or something. You can see her just turn like devil daggers, absolute daggers.
Daggers. Yeah, I mean, if she has been saying it's not the government's fault, it's because people are ill and fat. Is that what she was saying, basically?
I don't know what she got in trouble for.
I think it was that, basically. I think she's been quoted as... She didn't say that, but she's saying one of the reasons why we've had such a high death rate is because we have a lot of long-term conditions and a lot of overweight people. I think is basically what she said.
I mean, that's probably part of the reason. Metabolic health in general. I mean, the bigger...
Yeah. I'd have just stoned it, man. She could have just said, yep.
But she can't.
Old, sort yourselves out. Next. I'm going to go to another broadcaster now. They're fat and old, so they're probably going to be dead in 15 seconds. Got to go.
That's the thing, isn't it? She can't slag off the electorate, can she? When it's just about,
It's only the fat and the old.
Clinging to power. Exactly, but who votes?
The young and the thin.
No. It's not, though, is it?
Is it not?
No.
Oh, shit. She fucked up then, didn't she?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, dear.
She actually closes her laptop as well.
Nuclear.
I think. Yeah. And, stones, glass houses, part black. She's a little on the heavy side, looking at her headshot.
Oh, fat shaming.
Yeah. Well, she started it. She looked a little bit like she might be overweight herself.
Yeah.
I mean, I've not just Googled Teresa Coffey BMI. if I had, these images would also have come up. Yeah, I think you're right. Well, I mean, yeah. Let's say for the benefit of the viewers. Here's some images. Some of them are of Theresa May, and some of them of other people.
Oh, it's a dancing queen.
There she is. Look at there. I mean,
Is that her? What's going on?
I don't know. She's smoking a cigar.
Cigar, yeah.
Yeah, so you know what I mean? Lose a little bit of weight yourself before you call the people fat.
Yeah. Oh, well. Shall I play the Chuck Schumer clip? Has everyone heard it by now?
The what, sorry?
Right, I guess not. The orange man has to be impeached.
Right, okay.
Do you know what impeachment's used for? It's used to remove a sitting president from office.
Yeah, so that's...
So now that he's out, they need to impeach him.
Yeah.
And Chuck Schumer is one of the Democratic senators who's behind it. And he was giving a statement to the House.
Right, okay.
It will be a full trial. It will be a fair trial. But make no mistake, there will be a trial, and when that trial ends, senators will have to decide if they believe Donald John Trump incited the insurrection against the United States. Donald John Trump incited the erection.
Oh, no.
How do you get that wrong? How do you mix up insurrection with erection?
He's just having major lulls, isn't he? Is that what the kids say?
Yeah. Rolf Copter.
Yeah.
He's having a Rolf Copter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a brain fart, isn't it?
Yeah, he's
probably just thinking about the hooker from last night, isn't he? Allegedly.
Yeah, snorting that coke off that hooker's titty.
Exactly, yeah.
Chucky baby. Yeah, it sounds like it. He had an erection inspired.
Insurrection.
Yeah. Anyway, I've found the highlight of the TV year. It's soon to be broadcast.
Go ahead.
Excellent.
I'm Ant Middleton. I've been trained in tactical questioning, and I'm going to use my skill set to interview my guest, Rebel Wilson. Take me back to the first time you had issues with your weight.
I wasn't loving myself in the way that I should.
I was pretty lucky. I only had like 2 sexual harassment experiences.
Now that I'm pregnant, I'm not actually pregnant. I just said that.
Only sexually harassed twice?
Yeah, who watches this fucking dross, man?
It's that a TV show. It's not even his own podcast.
Sky!
Oh my God.
I'm an expert at questioning people. I'm going to use my expertise to question Rebel Wilson.
Would be more interesting if you waterboarded celebrities in a battlefield scenario after they've been in a stress position listening to white noise for 14 hours.
They already do that. That's I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, what a lot of fucking dross. They'll commission anything these days, won't they?
Yeah.
What are you looking at, Ben?
I'm doing.
I've gone down a Teresa Coffee wormhole.
Yeah, I have, and it's a glorious wormhole.
What have you got?
I'll post it on Instagram. Okay. Just a new logo for us.
Right.
Hey.
Do you want to add anything?
I know. Praise Jabalan.
Look that bear.
Yeah. Go green.
Sticky clicking.
Is that me clicking?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Right. Shall we sign off then?
Yeah, it's good, yeah.
I had to rattle through all that stuff. I've been trying to not do as much, get as much stuff for the after show. But it's just a bumper week this week with the World Economic Forum. I could have done another hour.
Yeah.
But time is a finite resource.
Yeah.
He's a homophobe and he's a misogynist.
Right.
Yeah.
Tobias Whalen next week. Going to be talking about all things 14. Cryptids, UFOs.
Oh, right, okay.
All the rest of it. Should be great. Yeah, Tobias has been on Conspiranormal. He's an excellent researcher. So I can't wait for that. It should be a treat.
A treat.
Yeah, make sure you join us. Come back next week. Build back better.
Build back better.
And really bothers me.
Sayonara.
Fucking vegan.
Donald John Trump incited the erection.
You Semites. Mr. Peter Burr.
like a judgment day and terminating. More like...
Jesus Christ.